Hi, my name's Emily, and I'm Emma's event manager. And just a little bit about us today. Within Emma, we unite music manager organisations across 16 European countries, which represent more than 3,000 managers across Europe. We've made it our mission to strengthen European managers globally throughout our Empower programme, which encompasses education, advocacy, networking, and research. Empower is a project co-funded by the European Union. If you want to know more about us, or if you want to stay up to date with upcoming events, make sure to visit our website, follow us on social media, and join our WhatsApp group. And you can also sign up to our newsletter. I'll be sending all of those links to you all in the chat. Within the chat, there's also a general manager's contact list where you can leave your contact details and find out details of others. Also, when you log off Zoom, there's a general manager's contact list. When you log off Zoom at the end of the session, there's a super brief survey which will pop up. Please take a moment to fill it out, as your feedback helps us massively to improve the upcoming events. Just as a reminder, there will be time for some questions at the end. Please write them in the chat. And if there's a question that resonates with you, give it a thumbs up or a heart emoji so we can make sure it gets answered. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it, and I'll pass you over to Jeff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma's Executive Director, and I'll be leading the session today. We have a whole world of amazing speakers here today, so I'm going to try and take up as little time as possible. But I will say that I'm very happy to ask the questions that you want. This is time for you to get your questions answered by our experts, and therefore do put them in the chat at any time, and I will be keeping a close eye on it so that I can share at any point. Apart from that, I have some great questions to ask these wonderful speakers, but let's start off with introductions. So I'm just going to ask you each to introduce yourself and say a bit more about what you do. And I'd love to start with Cecilia, if that's okay.
Hi, I'm Cecilia from Wasserman Agency. I've been in music industry for probably about 15 years now. I started off in a small agency, and then after a few years, I moved to Primary Talent, and then I spent 2 years there. Then I've been moved to Coda, and now which is now part of Wasserman.
Great. And could you just, what artists do you work with as well?
Artists, so I've worked across a mixture of electronic DJ and also live acts. So predominantly at the top is like Kate Renata, Matt Ronson, and on the more live side is like Gary Newman, Cherokee in the past, and like Fever Ray.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much for that. And next up, can I ask Kim to introduce themselves?
Hi, my name is Kim Kelleher Garcia, and I work with Tommy Blanchard, who you'll see there at Global Motion. I'm the business support manager. I've been there over a year now. I started my career when I was a teenager, working in studios, got involved in management, very DIY, worked in publishing, worked for BMG, worked for a music royalty company, worked for a record label, and love live music, passionate about it, would love to set up a charity one day, would love to be a manager at some point as well myself. They're my personal interests. So I believe in the UK, UK music scene, supporting it as much as possible, passionate about grassroots, and that's it really.
Great, thank you so much. So yeah, we're sure to have the kind of technical expertise as well as the trends and other side of things. Ellie, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Ellie Giles. I'm on the board of the UK MMF and also on the board of Emma. I've been managing now probably, I think it's about 13 to 15 years. Previously, I was A&R at Polydor, and before that, I was actually a promoter in Liverpool in the UK. I currently only manage one artist called Maruja, who are a punk jazz band and are doing very well. They've just been on a sellout run in America, China, Japan, and are about to play numerous festivals this summer alongside a big US tour in the autumn and a big UK Europe tour.
Nice. Feel free to drop the links so we can find out more about Maruja. Alex, would you mind introducing yourself? Sorry, don't know why I can't speak there.
Hey guys, I'm Alex. I'm a promoter. I work at Metropolis Music, which sits under the Live Nation umbrella. I've been in the live music scene for about 12 years now, but at Metropolis for about 7. I came through venues. So I used to do venue programming at Box Park, Shoreditch and Croydon. And yeah, this is how I ended up in live.
Awesome, thanks. And Tommy, I know that obviously you're a colleague of Kim's, but if you just quickly introduce yourself as well, that'd be great.
Sounds really boring compared to everyone else. It's all really boring. I have been in logistics since I was 16 and I'm 44 now. We're a specialist logistics provider basically, and I am the senior project manager. So I oversee a lot of the projects and just give some pointers and prevent problems happening before they happen, pretty much. That is my role.
Great. And Becky, last but not least, sorry.
Hi, sorry, I had to move around the house just then. So my name is Becky Ayres and I'm the Managing Director of Sound City. So we run Sound City, which is the Europe's leading independent festival for new music. So we have loads of artists, around 300 a year, that come and play at the festival. And we've had people like Ed Sheeran and Stormzy and Florence and the Machine and Youngblood that have played at it. And we also have an industry conference where we have companies like the BPI and AIM and the MMF and loads, you know, of companies across the spectrum of the music industry that all come together to be part of the conference and networking in the world capital of pop music, which is Liverpool. So I think we have a lot of European and international artists that come and play at Sound City, and there's loads of opportunities there that I can talk about.
Great, thank you. Yeah, perfect entry point into the UK market for sure. So just quickly, I want to kind of open it to the room, but like what is exciting you about the UK music scene at the moment? Is there anything that you particularly want to share with everyone to be like, keep an eye on this?
Shoegaze, drill, hip hop, rock, everything is blown up at the moment. I go to roughly 2 to 3 gigs a week at the moment.
Oh,
And
wow.
they're mainly indie bands. A lot of them are unsigned. They've got agents, but they're not signed. They haven't got record deals yet. But everyone is out there. Everyone's doing it for themselves, and good for them, because that's what keeps everything churning over. If we don't have grassroots, if we don't have people being creative, we're not going to have a future.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts about the stuff coming up, Cecilia?
Well, I think it's very exciting. Like, I mean, especially we're very in the electronic scene as well. It's been very, very diverse, and like especially I've kind of like for myself personally, it's been like working with like music from like Southeast Asia, like and like also the Middle East. So like the past 18 months or 2 years now, I've worked with like artists like Noria, Joti, and like C Muffin, they all have like their own kind of like sound influence and like kind of like growing up in their like native country. So yeah, it's very exciting in that front. And I think like also like it's exciting to kind of like see bands coming back. I feel like, you know, I think for
Bands
a
are
while
back.
everyone was a bit like, no, indie is dead. But I think, you know, I believe that's definitely coming back strong.
That's great to hear. That's exactly the type of info we need as well for
Yeah.
managers out there looking for building in the UK. Cool. Well, let's move on and let's just like get straight into it about like the UK scene and getting started in it. What are the first steps? What are the routes into market for international acts and their teams? Ellie, I'm going to start with you if that's okay. What are your experiences building bands in UK Live, especially any from the outside the UK? What did progress look like? Can you just talk to us about the process almost?
I think it's you know, it's really important when you're considering to build something in any way, you have to think about the fundamentals. So the fundamentals are like, have you got any kind of audience already in that market? Is there an interest in that artist in the market? I was managing a client for a year called Joel Sunny, who had about 6 million followers across all of his socials. And when we were looking at kind of doing the live shows, because he'd never done live before, we were really considerate of like what does that look like? What numbers should we go with? I think the key thing is always make sure that you're putting them in venues that you know that will sell out, or at least do good solid 80%, ideally sell out, because it's the right look to have. So I think, but also making sure like media and social media and all the other things are considered. So, you know, if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go and book a show in London, consider what that actually means. Like, okay, I'm going to put a show in, but is there any press around it? Is there any radio around it? You know, is there any kind of other highlights and other moments around it that actually really help sell them tickets? And then also think about like, you know, the UK, it's not that big in comparison to a lot of countries, so you can get around it quite quickly, in comparison to other countries. So, you know, if you're going to come and do London, is it worth you doing Manchester and Glasgow as well, which are again strong markets? So, you know, always look at like, what is it you're trying to achieve? What are you trying to do? And then always make sure that like, if you are going to go into market, that there's always a follow-up. If you're just going into market without a follow-up, then you're not putting yourself at the best possibility of growing.
Yeah, live is not a monolith at all. You know, it exists with everything else as well. Alex, further to that, it'd be great to hear about your experiences of building international acts. You've worked with some huge artists on shows, and what again has been like that process, and what worked, what was the strategy, was it successful, that kind of thing.
So I'm speaking from the promoter lens, of course. And a lot of I guess when I've come in and working with artists at different levels, a lot of our artists start really small. And I think when I first started, had a really naive view that it was like a super quick progression or succession. Like, you know, you do something that was 100, 200 cap, and then you could like go to 1,000 and it's 5,000, and all of a sudden you're playing O2. But it's simply not like that. There is no like real blueprint for building an artist. They really have to just kind of get to know their audience, and it's, you know, trial and error kind of thing. Some venues work for some genres, other venues work work better for different genres. You have to test the market, and that's something I found really, really hard to kind of get my head around, because as a promoter, we take all of the risk, especially when it comes to putting on shows and managing expectations of artists, managers, agents. So in terms of building the people I've built from quite literally inception to really, really big venues, it's about time, it's about patience, and really knowing the audience and not giving up as well. Sometimes you have a period where an artist might be a little bit out of cycle, or the music's not resonating with their audience, and that can also affect ticket sales. Also, you could have something like the cost of living crisis, which is also affecting ticket sales. You just kind of have to just know everything down, place it out, and then kind of manage everyone's expectations based on what's going on and what the climate's like.
And when you say the cost of living crisis is affecting ticket sales, and is it affecting ticket pricing? Like, how is the market kind of responding to that as well?
Yeah, it affects everything, because obviously we have to pay all of the overhead. So you got your hire fees, staff fees, all of that stuff that kind of goes into lifting a tour off the ground. But we also have to remember that venue hire fees are going up. Their bills are also going up. You know, when you're living at home, where, you know, mortgage, rent, all of these kind of things, it's affecting every single person. Artists also have, you know, make a living. They have families and things to pay for, especially when it comes to recording, studio time, making videos, just kind of putting all of their finances into their art. So if, you know, you're looking at your life and thinking, okay, my rent's gone up, you can assume that everything is going up everywhere. So it's just about, again, managing those expectations and being honest about, okay, how much are things actually costing and what are our margins looking like? Because a £50 ticket price in London, it could be totally different up in Leeds. It's totally different in Bristol. You really have to kind of look at the demographics of people living there, and what the kind of region is like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's coming across like every country, not just the UK, but definitely feeling it here for sure,
Yeah.
because of the strong market as well. Kim, just in terms of you for getting started, like what, or Tommy, either of you, what's the first thing that international managers need to really understand about touring the UK logistically? And
Well, it depends where they're coming from in the world. I imagine Tommy would agree with me on that, because obviously if you're outside of Europe or if you're inside of Europe, if you're in the Windsor framework, they all have implications, right, Tommy? So if you're coming from the US, what would, you know, should we talk about a US act or a
well,
tour?
we're
a US
focused
act?
on
No.
Europe, so mostly
Okay.
be those that are
Yeah.
coming. So
Okay, so from a European perspective, obviously, like with any tour, you've got a budget, you've got a plan, you've got to have contingency, you've got to have the right contractors around you, you've got to have vendors, etc. But you've got to have those communication lines there because things fluctuate, things change, and they can be very drastic and dramatic. And Tommy is out on many tours, and I'm sure he'd like to take over.
Yes. There's been a drastic change since Brexit obviously happened, because now we've got a lot more red tape to get through. We used to have the free circulation, so it was a lot easier for the small medium bands to come in who are tackling budgets, and there's not much markup in it for them. But yeah, now we have to do customs clearances for everything in and out. It adds time, it adds money, it can add delays, like unforeseen delays and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more complicated. It's not too bad, but it's definitely things that you've got to consider when coming in and out of the UK from Europe, which I should imagine for new up and coming acts, and if you're not fueled by a big money sort of sign-in, it can probably kill your tour, I suppose.
yeah, I mean, a balance sheet for a tour is extremely difficult to
So
keep.
sorry to interrupt you, but I was at TG recently and I saw a really good showcase from north of Ireland, and I spoke with someone later on and they explained that one of the bands originally from the north of Ireland are actually based in the UK, but they're actually having to go back to north of Ireland because expenses here, touring here, just like you said, cost of living, Alex said it, yeah. Everything was just getting too much for them to be creative and be able to actually prosper and tour, so they have to go back. So how do we prevent that? I mean, like looking at that focus, because our business, and Tommy and I work in it, we're in the middle of it, but it's very important that people at the beginning and people who are actually establishing themselves are able to progress and go forward before people like Tommy or I are even involved. Obviously, this goes back to managers and agents. And there's a lot of these types of conversations, and obviously Windsor Framework, etc. And you're talking about European tours. There's a lot of movement, and there's a lot going on from the Republic of Ireland as well, as much as the north of Ireland coming into the UK. I mean, you just have to look around at how many bands are from Ireland at the moment. It's massive. It's
Yeah,
huge.
they're absolutely killing it.
But how DIY is a lot of this. This is the thing, is we're kind of in the middle. Tommy, would you say that? Would you agree that we're not obviously right at the beginning for a lot of these acts because of the size, even though we love to support grassroots and we love to see bands up and coming and grow and give them advice and to help them out? What do you think, Tommy? Do you think that we're just a few stages on, or?
Yeah, I've noticed that there's been a big decline in small to medium-sized bands, especially the small, and they are doing it for themselves to keep costs down. So a lot of them will, hire their own splitter buses or whatever it might be. There's a lot of hand carrying that they're doing, which, back in the day, I suppose, without sounding far too old, they would have put that on a pallet and we would have flown it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, please do feel free to share the links to your company as well, so that those who are managing those kind of mid-sized bands and looking for solutions can find out more about what you offer.
yeah.
But I'd love to move to Becky. Becky, showcases are hugely important across Europe. Like, we see this for emerging acts and everything like that. But how important are they for breaking acts in the UK? And what makes you consider an artist? What makes you book an artist?
So showcase festivals, as you said, are so important. And I think what is good about the UK market for international acts is that in May, you've got Sound City and The Great Escape, Focus Wales, that all take place within about 2 weeks of one another. And there's also Wide Days in Scotland, which is another one which didn't happen this year, but is often there. So you've got the opportunity to go to Liverpool, Wales, to Wrexham in Wales, and to Brighton, which is essentially London. And what often happens is that we have international artists that will come and do a tour, and they will route in, hopefully if they get accepted for Sound City, Great Escape and Focus Wales, they can go and do them, and then they'll book other dates around that. And so it's really important. It's that they're really important platforms, because we're all very, very receptive to international artists, and we really want to have our international artists playing. And we find in Liverpool is a port city, and it's always been so, so welcoming to anyone coming from outside. And people love coming to play here because the audiences are just wild and people go mad for the music. And we have such a great reception for artists that come from international territories here. And so the performance thing is one thing, but then the conference elements are so important as well for the networking, for getting to know and understand the UK scene, and for meeting people. So it's a really good time if you can come over in May and do those festivals. It's just a great way to just make a start in the UK. And I mean, for us, in terms of what we're looking for, we are always speaking to international export organizations and finding out who are the ones that are going to be touring. So like we'll speak to like the French Music Export, or to Catalan Arts, or to the Norwegian Music Export, for example, and we'll say who is going to be out in that time frame, and who are the people that really want to break into the market, and what are they looking to do. And also, we're also talking to different festivals in those countries as well. So like we often talk to Mad Cool in Spain, and we talk to Primavera, and we talk to Transmusical in France, and we find out who they're booking in their own countries and who we should also be looking at. So we're having lots of conversations about the international market, but we're also just really inviting artists to apply to play at Sound City. So if you're an artist that wants to come and play in the UK, in September, we will open our artist applications, and anybody can come on and apply to play at the festival, and you upload your EPK and your music, and we go through every single application, and we make sure we assess everything, and we speak to everyone that we can to find out who the artists are that we should be working with. And if you've got an agent, then our agents, all the UK agents, will know us, and they'll put forward artists that they think should be playing as well.
So it's a real mix of recommendations and people applying. But that's such a good tip. Like, really get onto your export office for these shows, because they are talking to all of the different showcases, and that's a great way to start in each country for sure.
I think the other thing to add on that is make sure when you do those showcases that it's also, there's going to be press around it, there's going to be other shows around it, specifically like a London show, ideally, just because ultimately if you just do the showcases and then don't have anything like building, solid tickets, like, because festivals are soft tickets, and you need hard tickets, and hard tickets are the ones that will kind of help really build audience. So it's important to do a soft ticket and a hard ticket strategy in everything that you do.
That's so important, as you said, Ellie. And I think what we find is we'll often help artists to find support slots with artists as well, in other cities, to help them get onto those shows. But as you say, to prove the artist in those cities, they really need to be selling their own tickets, as you said. So
again, they're not monolith. Live is not monolith. Everything else around it needs to be in place as well. And Cecilia, I think that's probably extremely relevant for you in terms of working with artists, and when you get involved with an artist, lots of things have to be in place, right?
Yeah, I think like nowadays, like, it's definitely very different now to, even 10 years ago. I think like obviously now, like with like, social media, and also like artists like kind of like, doing their own thing, like, not having to be tied or signed to a major, all of that is like really exciting, and like I think it's, again, like going back to what Rebecca said, like having those showcases are so important, and like building like kind of a plan, and also like you know, you don't want it to come over just to do one showcase. You want to kind of like try and kind of seek out other regionals, and also like, you know, if you can, you know, kind of tie in with your European plan as well, and that you're actually building a much bigger like touring. And like that's what promoters and festival wants to see. And also like I always think like timing is key. And like, you know, festival are booking like earlier and earlier. I mean, last month or actually even May, we've already had like festival coming in booking next year. And like, you know, I think like, you know, I think like a lot of the key, I do find like also a lot of the key kind of like festival in the fall, obviously like for the headliners, perfect time. Like, you know, that's like, you know, I think like really kind of like worth kind of like you putting a plan around like Q4. But obviously then like, you know, come the springtime, you've got all the kind of like Liverpool Sound City, like Great Escape, like they're kind of like, you know, really great for kind of like getting you started as like kind of developing artists and paving you kind of like for the summer as well.
Amazing bits of advice there. Definitely lots to pull out. But just, I mean, I think we hear a lot from managers, right? That they're looking for an agent. This is going to be the thing that makes the biggest difference. And what would you say to them? And what would you say about what you need to see from the manager side?
I think, I mean, for me personally, it's always been the person and the artist. I think like because, you know, I think your plans needs to be aligned. I think you need to kind of be on the same page. I think like, you know, I don't think, you know, it does anyone's favor if you're not actually kind of like, you know, building, you know, if what I have planned doesn't align with where they see themselves in the next year, 2 year, 3 year, you know, then I don't think that relationship will work.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you know, same vice versa with artists. I mean, I've had artists that's, you know, I've got a couple of acts at the moment that's without a manager. And like, you know, again, I always kind of tell them like, look, it's a very, very different relationship to an agent. And like do like, you know, spend time and actually, you know, I think like, you know, that relationship is so much closer, and like, you know, you do need to kind of like find the right person. And I think at the moment, you know, for me, it's like, you know, looking at like what they have like kind of planned in terms of music, who they're collaborating, like, you know, that's kind of like the key ones. And then obviously like their presence in the like kind of like across like all the social media platforms as well.
So yeah, they need to have things in place, plans in place. You can't just be coming up and saying, "Oh, we'd love to work with you." It's like, okay, well, what are you planning to do, kind of thing. You come in to support that vision and make it a reality.
Yeah, exactly. We're kind of like, you know, we're here to, you know, obviously we want to help them to build a live business, but obviously like it needs to kind of like we all have to kind of build this plan that's aligned with like the live touring, the music release. You know, I've seen many times in the past where, you know, your music release don't align with your live touring, but because a band or manager decided that they really need to get on the road or they need to build a fan base, you know, I think like nowadays there's more like, you know, ways of doing that, building content, you know, like pop-up, for example, you know, a lot of acts are doing, you know, and we've talked about kind of like how like pop-up, you know, to the audience, it might just be like is announced instantly, but some of these pop-up, like we've been planning for like months or years ahead, you know, and that is, you know, why, you know, I think is at that stage it's really important to kind of like align all your plans with your label, with your manager, with your agent, you know, so that everyone's kind of like, you know, working towards this strategy.
I think the big key in all of this is making sure that you have solid music plans before you even think about live plans. So ultimately, if you've put one single out and you're wanting to export, then you're naive and you're wrong. It's just not going to happen. So I think unless you've had like a hit that just goes viral and it's, you know, it's elevated, which, you know, sometimes can happen. But ultimately, I think the key is making sure that you are like you have a solid plan, ideally a year plan with music. So it would be, you know, a single every 6 to 8 weeks. You know, you have certain teams everywhere else. Like, so if you are thinking of coming to the UK market, making sure you've got like a, you know, a press team, a radio team. Again, if you're on the pop side of things, like think about how Alessi Rose has built it. So you just go and meet people and do meetups instead of going to play live first. So you're building that audience that way. And if you're a band, you know, just literally make it as cheap as possible and try and get, you know, if you can get supports, brilliant. If you can't get supports, then, you know, ultimately get out and try and, you know, jump on a festival or jump on a very small show that is like 100 cap at most. But yeah, it all has to, you know, at the end of the day, nothing sits on its own. It has to all, it's a jigsaw puzzle. It's always been a jigsaw puzzle. And ultimately that is the key. And if you have them all aligned and you have a strategy that is all aligned, then the chances of having a successful live business in the UK is higher.
Absolutely. Ellie, as a manager, what relationships are you cultivating in live, and would you recommend to others? Like, do you have relationships with promoters like as Alex, or are they important to building those artists?
Yeah, 100%. Like there are certain promoters in the UK who have like their own independent venues that really do support like you know, grassroots music. Certainly like Nath at the Brudenell in Leeds, he's, you know, if he loves the music, he will try and make something happen. You know, there are promoters, like everything from like the big promoters to the small promoters. But, you know, if you can work out, like, if you're quite, you know, an in like indie artist, but has a really specific audience, if it's punk, say, like really solid punk, find the punk promoters and contact them. But yeah, having good like relationships with promoters is really vital for certainly if you don't have an agent. I certainly did that with one of my artists where we didn't have an agent, so I was like, right, I'll go and book the shows myself, and I'll just go to all the promoters and find those people, and then I basically booked a, you know, a 8-date tour. But it's working out who the promoters who are open. The other thing with promoters, especially if artists don't have a really strong voice when it comes to supports, like the promoters will suggest support acts to, and so again, they can help in regards to getting you on support tours or just even one show. So yeah, I would always recommend trying to connect with them, because sometimes you find that a promoter is actually more likely to take a risk than an agent sometimes at the beginning. Like I've certainly found that maybe 3 or 4 times actually, where, you know, I've got a promoter. Yeah, I've got a promoter saying, certainly in London or the north, and be like, okay, I'll do a small show for you, 100 cap. I can only pay you this, and the money might be low, but they'll take the risk, because if an agent takes you on, then an agent has to do long-term strategy, whereas a promoter could take a risk on one show. So actually, it's really vital to look at both routes to market.
Absolutely. That's what I was about to say. Sorry, Cecilia, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, just to give an example, like, I have, like, an Australian artist, like, singer-songwriter who, you know, she spent, like, most of the summer over here just to kind of, like, have some studio time, connect with, like, her peers, like, you know, come up with collaboration and, like, you know, again, meeting promoters. Like, you know, I mean, she sits in the, like, kind of, like, LGBTQ plus kind of side, so she makes sure, like, you know, she does, like, goes to all the Pride events and connects with all the Pride promoters, you know, and like that's been really beneficial for her, like for the past 2 summers now.
Being proactive on that, finding those promoters that like resonate with your ideals and stuff like that, like hugely important. And I will say, as a manager myself, I've absolutely found that there's plenty of smaller promoters. Lanzarote in London is a great example. You could go to venues like the Old Blue Lost and stuff like that, and look at putting a show on and look at working on them and testing the market, seeing how it fits, and if that's something you really want to do aside, then you can totally do it. It's entirely possible.
I think to add to that, for like London venues, you've got like Old Blue Last and you've got Seabright Arms, and they're both very small. But you've also got Brixton Windmill for like guitar music, which,
Yeah.
you know, are always coming up with kind of they're always booking really, really young artists, and they want young artists. And then if you're on the jazz scene, it's, you know, it's reaching out to Jazz Cafe and in London, and saying, because they again do book their lineups. They're normally, some of them are part of a tour, but some of them are one-offs. And so it's just finding those venues that have like your genre connected to it. So yeah, it's being strategic about it. But yeah, there are people out there that would quite willing to take that risk, because ultimately you might only walk away with £100. That's the thing you've got to remember, is if you are going to come to the UK at the beginning, like your first show will probably be £100 to £500. If you're lucky, it's £500. Very, 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 very lucky if it's £500. But I think being realistic, you're looking at about £100. So you have to also go, right, well, we might be making some money in this market. So it's a perfect example. This is just not the UK, but I think is a good example. When I was putting the tour together for my band, a 48-date tour last year, we went to pretty much all of Europe. So and we'd got a promoter in the Balkans who'd offered to do a Balkans and Baltic tour. And he offered a big flat fee for the whole, for like, it was about 8 dates. And it was encompassing everything from Athens to Serbia to Bucharest to Slovakia. It was, you know, it covered everywhere. And that big lump sum, we had no tour support at that time. So that big lump sum, I said to the agent, I was like, right, we're already looking at this section of countries and cities. Let's look at Spain and Portugal, and let's look at like other places that we wouldn't ordinarily do. And Spain, we had 2 shows, and they gave us an offer. The offer had no fee, none, not one fee. It was like zero. It was a split at the door. It wasn't including hotels, but because we had the money from the Baltics, we could then use that money to then pay for Spain. Anyway, went on sale. Barcelona and Madrid sell out. I think it was like there were 250, 300 cap venues sold out. And we went back to the promoter. We were like, well, what do we do? Anyway, we ended up upgrading. We ended up getting a very significant fee, a very good with hotels included. And on top, when we hit split on them shows, we walked out was one of the biggest payers of the whole tour was our Barcelona show.
So
So I think the point is that if you're making money somewhere else, and you think that, you know, it's not about making money at the beginning, it's about sharing the wealth and making sure that you've got enough to kind of keep building. So we broke even on that tour. It wasn't an earner, but it broke even, and we got to all of those markets, and now we have a solid business in
go
all the
back.
markets.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's really relevant for the UK in the way that it's easy to think about London, it's easy to think about Glasgow, and like Liverpool, Manchester, but maybe there are some other things you can put in there to build it out and to build in new markets for sure. Alex, when I was talking about the relationship with managers, how do you work with managers? What do you need from them when you're promoting shows?
So I think the role between, well, the roles cross over a lot, like managers, promoters, agents. I think there's a lot of crossover between all of the roles. Sometimes I work directly with management, and when I have those kind of relationships where I'm trying to get a tour off the ground and there's no agent involved, I need as much information as possible, basically, because to fill all of the gaps in my promoter mind that an agent would usually fill, like, okay, we're touring Europe on this date and this date, so we can only do London or Scotland or wherever it is on this date. Just having all of the information, knowing when all of the singles are coming out. So if they're signed or if they're independent, kind of having that information, because it's super relevant. Because then if they're signed, I can connect with the label, get all of the information from them. If they're not, it works a little bit differently. But just having that open dialogue is really important, because there's nothing worse than, you know, getting a tour on sale and it being direct with the manager and seeing that they're releasing a single that you didn't know about, that you could have planned, you know, lots of marketing around and done a lot of promo, especially if the tour hasn't sold as many tickets as you'd like to. Just, yeah, like I mentioned before, having that open dialogue, because no information is too much. The more we know, the better, and we can use it to market the tours and the shows and all the festivals that we have. I actually had something similar the other day where I didn't know the album got pushed back, and then I didn't know when the release date was coming out, and then I woke up the next day and saw that it come out, and it was just like a real big missed opportunity to kind of market the tour around new music and shift a few more tickets. So yeah, working directly with managers, just getting as much information as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep your promoters and keep everyone updated. I've seen that so many times. I've seen it from the other side as well, working at the label and finding out that a huge tour is being planned in a, like, I don't know, in another country or something. It's like, oh, we could do loads around this. We could help.
Yeah.
Ellie, sorry, you put your hand up there.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I thought of that's quite valuable for building out of market is if you've got an insanely good live band, like, or live artist, like they're fucking like seriously incredible, like get some really good footage like made, like make sure the footage is like insane, shows the engagement from the audience to the with the artist. Because even if it's like a small 500, like 50 cap venue and it's a sweat mess and like everyone's losing their mind, or even if it's a pop artist and everyone's like crying, or if it's a singer-songwriter and everyone's just like sobbing their hearts out, whatever it is, like if you can show that emotion and show that connection between the artist and the audience, then ultimately from an agent point of view and a promoter point of view, they're more likely to be like, actually, you know what, even though this is a lot of risk, I can see this connecting, because you're telling the story and you're giving the narrative to them so they don't have to do any of that hard work to make a decision. They can go, okay, well, even if we do a risky show for 100 cap, you know, there is an audience already that's happening. So maybe there is an audience here as well. I just think, yeah, being as giving as many assets as what Alex said, like as many assets as possible and as much information as possible, ultimately helps everyone's story and everyone's building.
Absolutely. Becky, I know you have to go in a second, so I will, yeah, please.
No, that's okay. No, that is such an invaluable point, because one of the things that we have for everyone that applies is the opportunity to include video, and it obviously speaks 1,000 words when you can see a band playing to an amazing, you know, enthusiastic audience. And it really does go a long way when you can see that energy, you know, just over video. And it helps us make those considerations in and amongst all the other things we're looking at, like streaming numbers, social analytics, and just kind of talking to people that we know as well to find out what's going on with the band. So I think, yeah, the more you can share with footage and just really exciting, just anything that you've got from fans and just anything that what your fans are saying about you and press coverage, it just really helps promoters massively. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go, but thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, make sure that you do keep an eye out for that open application for Sound City in September.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Becky. And Tommy, Kim, I wanted to come back to you guys on budgeting, which is, you know, not a lot of people's favorite discussion, but really, really important. How can managers, especially from outside the UK, budget realistically when looking and making it cost effective? Because we've heard a lot about how it might not be a huge money spender to begin with. So what would your advice be around that?
The routing. I mean, it's all about the planning, isn't it? So similar to what Ellie was saying, as long as if you're planning properly and you've got that efficiency, then you're not going to be doubling back. You're going to be following some kind of streamlined way of touring. I imagine Tommy would agree with me on this, because Tommy actually travels a lot with work, as you can imagine, and you can see yourself what it's like, for example, how you're on the road and how you have to move from location to location. So streamlining is always best. So planning in advance, trying to keep it down in that respect. collaborating with other acts, I could imagine that's handy as well. When you have those relationships with other acts who aren't particularly financially well off either, and if you're emerging as an artist or a band, and you can jump on with other people and you can share costs and you can, hit up promoters and agents and see if you can book the same gigs, etc., for a certain amount of tour. I'd imagine that helps. Tommy, what do you think?
How in depth do you want me to go? If I say anything,
Some key advice would be great.
if it's completely off topic or out of the remit that we're talking about, just sort of tell me. It's just it's factoring in transport, it's factoring in delays that you can experience. It's sort of seeing them potholes before they come. You're always going to get delays when you're coming into the UK or out of the UK with a customs thing, so factor that in. And I think from keeping costs down, you all know this, but hiring gear locally rather than carting it all around Europe can sometimes be a lot more cost effective. Streamlining down equipment that you don't need. It's about keeping your package as small as possible, right? We have a few acts that take things that are extravagant and really not needed and cost an absolute fortune. And you think, wow, why are you doing that? But what do I know? But yeah, it's just things like that, really. It's just planning in advance. Like again, if we're talking about costs and keeping them low, if you don't book things until the last minute, you're potentially going to pay through the nose because vehicles are taken, and you start paying an extortionate rate. So does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what would you be talking about when it comes to like a budget for a first couple of shows? How much should people really be thinking about the cost, including, I guess it varies loads, but are there any kind of figures that you can give?
What are we talking about? Give me an example of a routing.
Or just for a couple of shows, just say London, Manchester, Glasgow, 200 cap.
All you're going to pay for is the truck, isn't it? From our perspective, from a transport or logistics company, it would be the transport side of it. So what vehicle are you going to use? That's it. Once you're in the UK, there's no customs, is there?
No.
So it's just your transport. Everything else, when it comes to venues and all that, that's very much your world and your domain, and we don't really touch that.
Ellie, I do want to come to you, but it would be great if you could also talk about what, or if anyone can talk about what a artist from outside the UK needs in order.
That's what I was going to answer for you. Yeah. So,
There you go.
so I think it's going, well, what is the simplest form you can take the music that it doesn't affect the live show? Like, so, i.e., what are your instruments? And do you need all of the instrumentation you normally take, without losing that whatever essence the live show takes? So you need to think that. So the cost of that, so it'll be if you're flying, then you have to think about, like, do you need to get an extra seat on the plane, or do you need to put it in the cabin? Sorry, in the hold. Then you need to think about, getting from the airport to the venue. Do you want to get a splitter, or do you just want to get a car and bung everything in a car? Because that is sometimes actually viable and doable, is just hiring a car and just putting everything in the back of a car. Carnets, if you're only taking your instrumentation, then you're fine. But if you're taking any more than that, then you need a carnet, which is can be around about 500 quid. It was probably a bit less than that. If you're only doing one show, you're probably looking at 300 probably. And then you've got petrol, hotels. Where are you going to stay? Can you crash on people's on floors? If you've got an audience already, you can put a push out to see if anyone wants to put you up. And I know that the punk scene do that quite a lot. And then food and drink. But you can do it really, really simply, to actually put a tour together. But still, I mean, even with hotels on top, the flights and everything, if you're doing, say, 100 cap rooms and you only get 100 quid, you're looking at already losing probably like 400 to 500 quid straight out the bat for each show. If you're being realistic, and that's a low amount of money to lose. It could be a lot more than that.
It's good to have the numbers though, to really understand what you might need to put together in order to do it.
I think it depends as again if you want a tour manager and you want a front of house, if you've
Sure.
got a band
All
can
those
drive.
other
Yeah,
elements can add to it.
yeah.
Cecilia, sorry, you were just unmuted. Did you?
I was just going to say it's always worth, and I do it for a lot of the live acts, just to find out what is in the venue, like what can they provide. And that's like, you know, kind of like that will also like a lot of the times also like could be the decision for you to pick that venue, you know. I mean, because sometimes like, you know, promoters will come to us, right, we've got 3 different options for London, and then like, you know what the setup is, and you can kind of like, you know, have those conversations and be like, okay, well, they definitely need like the space for like a 4-piece, or actually just a 2-piece. You know, I think those are kind of like, you know, it's really helpful, like from an agent providing that to a manager or a tour manager. And then like, you know, they can cost that up properly.
That's great. And just we're gonna move fully on to questions in a second, but just in the meantime, can anyone tell us, in terms of a European artist coming to the UK, what kind of visa or anything that they need?
Is this for the actual person you're talking about?
The person or the band, I guess it's the same, because
The
now
band.
it used to be obviously a COS, certificate of sponsorship, but now it's changed to PPI. So it makes it a little bit easier. It's just a letter they have to complete.
Just a letter. And who would provide that letter?
I think a lot of the agent like us, we do, but I think like manager can also kind of like apply that as well. It's a little bit less complicated now.
Great.
Yeah.
It's good to hear it's going that way. So I had a question a while ago that I want to tackle right away, and it's open to any of you with the knowledge, but what about DJs in the UK? Any particular advice for building their live setup? Does anyone have experience of this? I mean, Cecilia, you said you worked with quite a few, kind of.
Oh, what? Any DJ?
Yeah, DJs. Someone just said, what can we get some recommendations for DJs trying to break the industry?
I mean, for DJ, I mean, obviously at the moment, I would say predominant tech house is still very strong, Afro house as well. And obviously, I mean, I definitely seeing this, you know, kind of influence of like still coming through on like this more swallow kind of like sound. So yeah, interesting kind of mix, for sure. But I do tech house definitely for sure.
Any cities, anything, any like particular things around that, or is it just
I think you know what, I think a lot of this now is because a lot of like the tech house DJ are kind of like dominating or doing collaboration with pop artists, and that's like, you know, you're seeing like more and more DJ producers in the charts than ever before. And I think
Celia, do you know an artist called Mount Palomar?
yeah.
I adore him, and he collaborates with so many people. He crosses so many genres.
Yeah, and I think this is why I'm going back to like, it's so important.
Yeah,
it's so important to collaborate. Like, you know, you can see a DJ producers feature on so many like different like kind of like genre of like music, and also like, you know, doing remixes as well. Also, you know, because like there is no end, you know, and like, you know, there is just you know, I think a lot of the bands are also kind of like keen to kind of get a producer on board to kind of remix their track as well.
So he worked with Enola Gay, he's worked with lots of people, and outstanding.
Yeah,
anyone who hasn't heard him, check him out.
So we have another great question, because I think the UK is quite different to a lot of European cities of countries here. But does the UK generally run on a venue rental model? And if so, is there a general price range for a 100-cap venue? Let's say in London. So do you normally rent the venue yourself, or would you get a kind of intermediary? And what is the price of a 100-cap venue? Alex?
It actually depends. Like we have a whole range of like grassroots venues. Some of them will give promoters a certain rate. So depending on where you work, they might give you a different rate. Sometimes they give you free hire if it's like an, oh my gosh, what's the venue in Tottenham Court Road? The Lower Third. Lower Third, yeah. Sometimes you can work out a venue deal. They might give you free hire if it's an artist, up and coming artist, or whatever the situation might be. So there's not like a set hire fee for every single 100 cap venue. It actually depends on what they've what they offer. So you get some venues that are really like super cheap, they'll charge you £50, £100. Then you get some that are a little bit more bespoke, and they have backline included and engineering included and all these kind of different things, and that might go up to £500, £800. But each venue has a rate card, so usually the promoter or an agent will kind of know a roundabout figure and kind of just advise the best venue for like your artist size.
It's very rare that you will book a venue direct. People still do it. I have done it. I did it. I've done it a few times where I haven't had a promoter and I've just been like, okay, well, we'll just go and book it direct. It is a little bit harder when you're outside of the country, I think, because you do ultimately need a promoter who has an audience to be able to plug into. So I think booking a venue yourself outside of the market, like I would book a venue myself if I have, say, an artist in their home city. I could easily do that because I know I'm going to sell the tickets and we're going to make more money by doing it that way than bringing in a promoter. But ultimately, yeah, I think I would always suggest, and predominantly in the UK, it is a promoter type kind of situation. But that, as I said, like there's Nathan at Brudenell and like Brixton Windmill who are venue promoters as well as promoters. So it's just sourcing them out really and finding them. But yeah, I would suggest, unless you've got something going on in the market, I would like very, very good in that one city, I wouldn't hire direct to the venue.
Interesting. Thank you so much. And yeah, I would totally back that up. It's just so much more work. It's really, really hard. I think something that's quite unique in the UK maybe is that we really get these promoters that have strong fan bases. So there's promoters like Bird on the Wire who really work with a certain range of artists. There's Communion who do the same. There's Eat Your Own Ears, which is a totally different vibe, but they do it themselves as well. And I would really recommend checking these out and understanding a bit more about our promoter scene because they're a great, they're a great starting point. In fact, there's an organization, the of independent promoters, which you can look for. I will try and find it before we finish. Just quickly, I don't. Oh, actually, I see one more question.
Yeah, it's a big email, big
It's
question.
a big question, and we're about to end. Let's just. I'll make sure that this gets answered separately. But just before we go, what final last tips? Does anyone want to think we missed something and want to just give a little bit of extra knowledge? Maybe around festivals. We have a lot of festivals. We've not really touched on them too much.
Well, I'll give a quick tip. I mean, I think it's self-explanatory, but definitely try and get to know all the pieces in the puzzle, like your agents, your managers, your promoters, but also festival bookers, because those are the people who quite literally book the lineup. So once you have a relationship with them, if you're not going through official channels or if you need a favor or they have a cancellation and they might think of you because you've emailed them, it's definitely worth getting to know some festival bookers if you don't already.
Yes, and great place to meet festival bookers is definitely places like the Greyscape and local. And yeah,
that's a good one to kind of connect.
For sure. Okay, well, this is already the end of our hour. And I think that there's been so many brilliant nuggets of advice in here. So thank you so much to our speakers. And thank you all for being here and watching. I hope it was useful for you. If there's anything else you need, let us know. And please fill in the form at the end when you leave the event. We'll really appreciate it. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks so much.